Why do people pull away right when things start to feel real? Carl Jung. It almost always begins quietly. There's no big moment you can point to, no clear turning point, just a subtle shift you feel before you can explain it. At first, everything feels easy. They respond quickly. They ask questions about your day. Conversations stretch late into the night without effort. You notice a kind of openness, the rare kind, where someone isn't just talking, they're letting you see them. You don't force it, they don't force it. And that's exactly why it feels different. You start thinking this is natural, not intense, not confusing, not fragile, just natural. They remember small details. They share personal stories. They say they don't usually tell people. They initiate contact without hesitation. Sometimes they even say things that sound like certainty. I feel comfortable with you. I don't normally open up like this. This feels easy. Nothing feels rushed. And because nothing feels rushed, your guard lowers without you noticing. You stop analyzing every message. You stop questioning tone. You stop wondering where you stand. You assume consistency. Then something changes. Not dramatically, not all at once. First, the replies take a little longer, not enough to confront, just enough to notice. Then the warmth becomes neutral, still polite, still friendly, but lighter. More distant. They still talk to you, but no longer reach for you. You sense hesitation where there used to be ease. You tell yourself they're busy. Everyone gets busy. So you give space. But the space doesn't bring them closer again. It stretches. Conversations shorten. Plans become vague. Energy feels measured. And the strangest part is this: nothing bad actually happened. No argument, no conflict, no clear reason. Just distance. Appearing exactly when closeness had started to feel real. So your mind searches for explanation. Maybe you said too much. Maybe you showed too much interest. Maybe they lost attraction. Maybe they met someone else. Maybe you imagined the connection entirely. Because human beings struggle more with confusion than rejection. Rejection closes a door. Confusion leaves it half open. You replay interactions trying to locate the moment it shifted. You reread conversations looking for mistakes that weren't mistakes at the time. You analyze tone, timing, and punctuation. Small details suddenly feel important, but the memory doesn't cooperate. The beginning was genuine. Their interest was real. Their effort was real. Their openness was real. Which creates the question that lingers louder than disappointment. If they felt it too, why did they step back the moment it became something? You might even notice they still watch from a distance. They respond just more slowly. They engage in just less. They don't leave, but they don't come close either. And this in-between space is what unsettles you the most. Because distance after conflict makes sense. Distance after indifference makes sense. But distance after connection feels personal. It feels like you crossed an invisible line, a line you never saw, never discussed, and never agreed to. You begin to feel as if closeness itself caused the retreat. And in a way, it did. But not for the reason people assume. Most people interpret withdrawal as loss of interest. They believe feelings decreased, attraction faded, or intention changed. Yet often the opposite has happened. The connection stopped being hypothetical. It became real. And reality changes the emotional weight of every interaction. Before that moment, everything exists safely in possibility. Possibility carries excitement, but not responsibility. You can enjoy someone without needing to reorganize your inner world around them. You can open up without consequence. because nothing is defined. But once emotional certainty appears, even silently, the mind stops experiencing the connection as an experience and starts experiencing it as a commitment forming, not a spoken commitment, an internal one. And that's when a quiet psychological reaction begins in some people. They feel the presence of expectation, not from you necessarily, but from what closeness represents. Closeness creates visibility. Visibility creates vulnerability. Vulnerability creates pressure. So they slow down, not consciously, not strategically, instinctively. They don't wake up deciding to become distant. They feel an emotional acceleration they cannot fully name, and their system presses a brake they don't realize exists, which is why their behavior confuses you, because it isn't consistent with disinterest. If they were uninterested, they would disengage cleanly. Instead, they hover. Be present enough to keep the connection alive, distant enough to keep emotional safety intact. And you feel caught in the middle of two realities: the closeness that clearly existed and the distance that clearly exists now. You wonder which one is true, but both are. What changed wasn't the authenticity of the connection. What changed was the psychological meaning of it. The moment something begins to matter, it stops being simple. And for certain personalities, that moment triggers something deeper than doubt, something closer to self-protection. Not protection from you, protection from what being close requires of them. The shift you felt was real, but it wasn't created by what you did. It was created by what the connection became. To understand why someone withdraws when things start to feel real, you have to look beneath behavior and into what closeness actually does inside a person. Because closeness is not just emotional warmth. Closeness reorganizes identity. At the beginning, interaction exists in a kind of psychological freedom. You are curious about each other, but still independent of each other. Nothing essential. And your daily emotional balance depends on the other person's presence. You can miss them, but you are not affected by them. You can enjoy them, but you are not shaped by them. That stage feels light because the self remains untouched. But as connection deepens, something subtle begins to happen. The other person's reactions start to matter. Not just intellectually, but neurologically. You notice their tone. You notice pauses. You anticipate responses. Their mood slightly changes your mood. And this is where a threshold appears. For some people, this is where attachment forms. For others, this is where alarm forms. Not because they don't care, because now they do. Real closeness introduces the possibility of emotional dependence and emotions. Dependence feels dangerous to a mind that equates safety with self-control. Many individuals grow up learning, consciously or unconsciously, that stability comes from managing their own emotions alone. They become skilled at autonomy. They handle stress internally. They solve problems privately. They recover quietly. Connection, in the early stage, doesn't threaten this system, but emotional significance does. Once another person can affect your internal state, you are no longer fully self-regulated. And for a personality built around independence, this feels like losing balance. So the mind begins an automatic recalibration. It reduces exposure, not completely, and that would create loss. Just enough. That would restore control. This is why the withdrawal feels measured instead of abrupt. They still want the connection, but they want it at a distance where their emotional center remains untouched. From the outside, it looks confusing. From the inside, it feels stabilizing. You interpret the change as emotional reduction. They experience it as emotional containment, because closeness does something psychologically irreversible. It creates stakes. Before, interaction was an experience. Now, it has consequences. You can disappoint someone you matter to. You can be expected by someone who understands you. You can hurt or be hurt in ways that feel personal rather than temporary. For a person comfortable with vulnerability, this deepens the bond. For a person uncomfortable with vulnerability, this activates self-protection. And self-protection rarely announces itself clearly. Instead, it disguises itself as rational behavior. They become busy. They need time to think. They slow the pace to keep things healthy. Often, they genuinely believe these explanations because the conscious mind translates emotional discomfort into logical language. They are not aware they are reacting to closeness itself. They believe they are reacting to timing, pressure, or life circumstances. Yet, the timing always aligns with emotional escalation. The moment conversations carry meaning. The moment consistency forms. The moment you stop feeling like an option and start feeling like a presence. That is when internal tension begins. Not tension about you, tension about what being close requires internally. Closeness requires exposure. Exposure requires trust. Trust requires surrendering some control over how you feel day to day. And surrender is unfamiliar territory for people who have relied on emotional self-containment their entire lives. So distance becomes regulation. When they step back, their thoughts quiet. Their routines feel normal again. Their emotional independence returns. But the connection still exists, which creates a paradox they rarely understand themselves. They feel calmer away from you and drawn back to you. Because the issue is not the person. It is the emotional impact of the person. You might notice they re-engage after space. They message again. They show warmth again. Sometimes they appear exactly like before, until closeness rebuilds. Then, the same discomfort rises. This cycle is not manipulation. It is a nervous system attempting to experience connection without losing stability. Imagine standing near the ocean. You enjoy the water, but if a wave rises higher than expected, you step back automatically. Not because you dislike the ocean, but because your body protects balance. Some people experience emotional closeness the same way. A certain depth feels warm. Beyond that depth feels overwhelming. And the moment interaction crosses that invisible depth line, retreat feels necessary. You experience the retreat as rejection. They experience it as relief. This is why reassurance often doesn't stop the pattern. Reassurance addresses doubt, but the reaction was not caused by doubt. It was caused by intensity. The connection became psychologically heavier than their comfort level allows them to carry continuously. So, their mind alternates. Approach. When distance feels lonely, withdraw. And when closeness feels consuming. And because they rarely understand this internal mechanism consciously, they cannot clearly explain it to you. They only know two sensations. Closeness feels good, until it feels like too much. Distance feels calm, until it feels like loss. So they move between both states, trying to keep emotional equilibrium, not realizing that from the other side, it feels like the ground keeps shifting beneath you. The connection didn't break, but it stopped feeling safe to rely on. And uncertainty begins to replace clarity. Not because affection vanished, but because their tolerance for sustained emotional proximity reached its limit. This is where most people turn the story against themselves. When someone pulls away, the first instinct is not to study their nervous system. It's to study yourself. You replay your words. You measure your vulnerability. You analyze your timing. Did I open up too much? Did I show too much interest? Did I make it too serious? And slowly, without noticing, you begin shrinking your natural behavior in your memory. You start believing that connection requires restraint. But here's what often goes unseen. When someone withdraws because closeness felt intense, your reaction determines whether the pattern deepens or dissolves. The moment you sense distance, something activates inside you too. Your nervous system responds to uncertainty. You might lean in, ask what changed, try to restore the warmth, increase reassurance, send longer messages, offer clarity, not because you're desperate, because you value stability. But this is where dynamics quietly shift. If the other person stepped back to reduce emotional intensity, increased pursuit amplifies exactly what they were trying to regulate. What felt almost too real now feels undeniable, and that intensifies their need for space. So you lean in slightly. They step back slightly more. You interpret their extra distance as confirmation that you did something wrong. So you lean in again, softer this time, more careful. And they withdraw again, calmer, but further. Until one day, you look at the connection and feel like you are the only one holding it up. This is not because you cared more. It's because you responded to uncertainty with effort, and they responded to intensity with retreat. Neither reaction is malicious, but they are opposite strategies. One tries to stabilize through engagement. The other tries to stabilize through reduction. And when those two strategies meet, imbalance forms. You begin adjusting yourself. You text less enthusiastically. You hide certain emotions. You act more chill. You pretend not to notice changes, but internally, you notice everything. And here's the subtle danger. You start believing their withdrawal means you must reduce your natural depth to keep someone close. But their retreat was not triggered by your depth being wrong. It was triggered by your depth being real. Closeness did not expose a flaw in you. It exposed a limit in them. Yet when people internalize someone else's limit as their own inadequacy, something shifts in their self-perception. You begin measuring your worth by someone else's comfort threshold. And comfort thresholds vary wildly between individuals. Some people can sit inside emotional intensity without panic. Others interpret the same intensity as loss of control. The same connection that feels secure to one person can feel overwhelming to another. So when someone steps back, it does not automatically mean you were too much. You were too eager. You were too expressive. It may mean you reached a depth they have not yet learned to sustain. But misinterpretation distorts perception. You see them becoming distant and assume feelings have faded. Yet if feelings had faded, distance would feel indifferent. Instead, it feels careful, measured, almost hesitant. And that hesitation reveals something important. They are not leaving because nothing is there. They are leaving because something is. Distance in this context is not emptiness, it is containment. But when containment meets pursuit, escalation begins. You try to bring back what existed naturally at the beginning. Yet what existed at the beginning was light precisely because it carried no emotional stakes. Now, stakes exist, so the dynamic cannot return to its original simplicity. And this is the painful realization. You cannot recreate early-stage effort once emotional. Weight has entered the equation because early-stage effort existed in emotional safety. Now, emotional significance exists, and significance requires maturity to sustain. If that maturity is not present on both sides, tension replaces ease. So you begin wondering, should I stop caring? Should I detach? Should I mirror their distance? But forced detachment is not calm. It's defensive. and defensive energy is felt even in silence. The deeper truth is quieter. When someone withdraws at the moment things get real, the question is not, how do I make them lean back in? The question becomes, am I reacting to their fear or responding to my own? Because their withdrawal may activate your fear of abandonment. And once both fears are active, one fear of losing autonomy and the other fear of losing connection, the dynamic intensifies unconsciously. Two nervous systems protecting themselves at the same time rarely move closer. They move strategically, and strategy kills natural connection. So instead of assuming rejection, consider this possibility. Nothing about you decreased. Nothing about your value shifted. The closeness simply reached a psychological depth where one person felt exposed. And exposure without inner stability feels unsafe. But here is the part many overlook. If someone cannot stay present at that depth, no amount of effort from you can make that depth comfortable for them. You can slow down, you can soften, you can give space, but you cannot increase another person's tolerance for emotional intimacy. That growth belongs to them. And misunderstanding that leads people into cycles of self-adjustment that slowly erode authenticity. You begin performing safety instead of expressing truth. And when authenticity decreases, connection becomes fragile. Not because it lacked chemistry, but because it lacked shared emotional capacity. The moment it got real, the difference in capacity became visible, and that visibility felt like distance. Two nervous systems protecting themselves at the same time rarely move closer. They move strategically, and strategy kills natural connection. So instead of assuming rejection, consider this possibility. Nothing about you decreased. Nothing about your value shifted. The closeness simply reached a psychological depth where one person felt exposed. And exposure without inner stability feels unsafe. But here is the part many overlook. If someone cannot stay present at that depth, no amount of effort from you can make that depth comfortable for them. You can slow down, you can soften, you can give space, but you cannot increase another person's tolerance for emotional intimacy. That growth belongs to them. And misunderstanding that leads people into cycles of self-adjustment that slowly erode authenticity. You begin performing safety instead of expressing truth. And when authenticity decreases, connection becomes fragile. Not because it lacked chemistry, but because it lacked shared emotional capacity. The moment it got real, the difference in capacity became visible. And that visibility felt like distance. When something pulls away the moment it becomes real, it forces you into a crossroads you didn't ask for. You can either chase the closeness that existed, or you can understand what the withdrawal revealed. Because at this stage, the connection is no longer the only thing being tested. Your self-trust is. When someone becomes distant, there is a temptation to fix the emotional gap, to send the message that clears confusion, to create the conversation that restores clarity, to reestablish the warmth that once felt effortless. But here's the quiet truth most people learn too late. When closeness triggers fear in someone, reassurance does not calm it. Presence does not stabilize it. Only their own internal security can. And until they develop that security, every increase in emotional depth will feel like risk rather than reward. So the real question shifts. It is no longer, how do I get them back to how they were? It becomes, do I want a connection that cannot survive depth? Because early stage chemistry is easy. Shared laughter is easy. Flirting is easy. Light vulnerability is easy. Sustained emotional exposure is not. And the moment it gets real is the moment you discover whether someone experiences closeness as expansion or as pressure. If they experience it as expansion, they lean in with steadiness. If they experience it as pressure, they lean back to breathe. You cannot convince someone to experience depth as safety. They must arrive there internally, and this is where your power quietly returns. When someone withdraws, it feels like control left your hands, but clarity restores it. Clarity reminds you that emotional capacity is not created by persuasion. It is revealed by proximity. The moment things became meaningful, their threshold appeared. That threshold is not an accusation. It is information. Information about how much intimacy they can hold without retreating. Information about whether your natural emotional rhythm matches theirs. Information about whether stability is mutual or conditional. Often people confuse intensity with compatibility. Intensity feels strong, but compatibility feels steady. Intensity spikes and drops. Compatibility deepens and stabilizes. When someone pulls away at the moment it becomes real, what you are witnessing is not always a loss of desire. It is a ceiling. A ceiling on how much closeness they can tolerate without self-protection activating. And here is the realization that shifts everything. You are not meant to shrink to fit someone else's ceiling. You are meant to recognize it. If you reduce your depth to maintain their comfort, connection may continue, but it will remain suspended at a level that never fully satisfies you. You will feel slightly restrained, slightly careful, slightly measured. And over time, that restraint turns into quiet resentment. Because you will always sense the version of closeness that almost happened. The version that felt real. The version that disappeared. True security is not forcing someone to stay close. It is remaining steady, whether they step back or step forward. It is not reacting from panic, not escalating when they withdraw, not collapsing into self-blame. It is observing. If they return calmly and consistently, depth may rebuild, this time more gradually. If they continue oscillating between closeness and distance, the pattern is speaking clearly. And patterns matter more than promises. What feels like rejection may actually be misalignment. What feels like abandonment may actually be incompatible emotional thresholds. And what feels like I wasn't enough may simply mean you were ready for depth. They were not prepared to sustain themselves. The moment it gets real is not where connection dies. It is where truth surfaces. Truth about fears, truth about attachment, truth about emotional capacity. And sometimes truth is uncomfortable because it removes illusion. But illusion is fragile. Real connection is not. Real connection does not retreat from depth. It stabilizes inside it. So when someone pulls away right when it gets close, remember this. Closeness did not scare them because it was wrong. It scared them because it mattered. And if someone cannot stay present when something matters, that is not a reflection of your value. It is a reflection of their readiness. Not everyone who feels something deeply knows how to hold it. Not everyone who connects strongly knows how to sustain it. And not everyone who pulls away has stopped caring. Some have simply reached the edge of their emotional tolerance. The edge where vulnerability feels like exposure. The edge where exposure feels like risk. The edge where risk feels heavier than desire. But you do not need to chase someone back from that edge, because the right connection does not require shrinking your depth. It meets it.